Chief Executive John Lee announces scrapping of most anti-pandemic measures. Health experts and business leaders welcome the changes. Holiday makers still keen to go to Japan despite airport limitations. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The government today announced an end to almost all anti-COVID measures in the city starting tomorrow. These include the scrapping of mandatory PCR testing arrangements for all inbound travellers, the vaccine pass scheme, quarantine orders for close contacts of COVID patients, and the outdoor gathering limit. The mask mandate, however, will stay in place. Christy Kant reports.
2 days after the Mainland announced major changes in its COVID-related policies, Chief Executive John Lee today declared an end to almost all anti-COVID measures in Hong Kong from tomorrow. The city's leader said the policy adjustments will help to fight the pandemic while allowing economic activities to take place. He added the government's efforts will now focus on reducing death and serious cases and protecting high-risk groups such as children and the elderly. One of the major changes include axing the mandatory PCR testing arrangements for all inbound travelers who are still required to perform rapid antigen tests for 5 consecutive days. The vaccine pass scheme, which was first implemented for all eateries and some regulated premises since February this year, will be scrapped as well. This means people no longer need to show their jab records to enter premises such as restaurants, bars, and cinemas. Quarantine requirements for close contacts of infected people will also be lifted. However, COVID patients are still subject to isolation orders until they obtain negative test results. Other social distancing measures, such as the 12-person gathering ban in public, a distance of 1.5 meters between 2 tables in catering venues, restrictions on restaurant capacity and some regulated premises will be lifted. And authorities will halt e-zooming testing orders for buildings. Chief Executive John Lee defended the changes despite the rising COVID caseload.
We have over 2.5 million who have been infected. So generally, we have built quite a strong community immunity against the virus. We have very good confidence that we can control the risk because the medical service has enhanced its response system, and also we have sufficient and effective medicine, and the community has good experience after 3 years to protect themselves.
However, one particular measure will stay in place, the mask mandate.
The benefit of masking, at least, especially at this point when we are facing a serious winter surge, is tremendous. We need to continue with the masking mandate in order to protect our citizens from the risks of not just COVID, but also influenza and other respiratory tract infection.
The Health Secretary added the authorities will keep the mask mandate until the city gets over the current winter surge. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee emphasized that the city will resume cross-border travel with the mainland by mid-January in a gradual and orderly manner.
It is my intention to reach an agreement with our counterparts no later than a time so that we can report to the Central People's Government for endorsement, for implementation before the middle of January. And every party has been working hard towards the program to make proposals to ensure that when we start to resume normal travel with the mainland, then it will be done orderly, safely, and also allowing people concerned to have a good experience. We don't want chaos.
The community's reaction to the lifting of most of the anti-COVID restrictions was generally positive. Mimosa Ngai reports.
After been more than 2 years of living under multiple restrictions. Many people have been waiting for the government to relax its anti-COVID measures. Professor Jin Dongyan from the University of Hong Kong's Faculty of Medicine said he supports the government's decision.
It is towards the right direction, and it will not cause major damage to the communities in Hong Kong, and will not increase the risk of having more severe cases due to COVID.
Meanwhile, LegCo and IXCO member Jeffrey Lam said scrapping COVID measures will allow the lives of Hong Kong residents to get back to normal.
I think it's timely. A lot of people are looking forward to resuming normal life as soon as possible.
But some COVID measures will remain in place, such as quarantine for infected people. Lam said it is a prudent and acceptable requirement since nobody would like to see patients walking around and spreading the virus. But some parents expressed concern that allowing close contacts of infected pupils to go to school may help to spread the virus. Mimosa 9, TVB News.
Hong Kong's COVID caseload rebounded to above 20,000, with 20,865 new cases reported. More than 19,600 of the infections were locally acquired, while over 1,000 were imported. 203 pupils and 118 members of teaching staff tested positive across 159 schools. 106 infections were also reported from 46 care homes for the elderly and 15 disabled care facilities. 59 more coronavirus patients succumbed to the virus. Starting Friday, Japan will restrict access for flights from the mainland, Hong Kong and Macau to just 4 designated airports. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Hong Kong's Japan enthusiasts will soon see their travel options to the land of the rising sun significantly confined. Beginning tomorrow, Japanese authorities will only allow flights from Hong Kong, Macau, and the mainland to enter the country via only 4 designated airports: Tokyo's Narita International Airport and Haneda Airport, Osaka's Kansai International Airport, and Nagoya's Chubu Centrair International Airport. Some travelers who were about to depart for Japan this morning still seemed keen to go.
Japan's intercity transportation is pretty good, like the Shinkansen, etc. So I don't think it should actually be too much of an inconvenience for those who are booking in the future. For those who have already booked to those places, yes, most likely.
Several people still chose to fly to Okinawa, a location not included among Tokyo's designated airports.
I'm comfortable about the airline's arrangement, and they make us feel comfortable before we fly. I don't think I can judge the government's policy, and I think every policy may not be cover all the need from every single person.
There's certainly some impact to our journey, but because we have been planning for this trip for a long time, and the children yesterday said, "Oh well, we wanted to go to Okinawa. We are going to take the flight." So anyway, we will go there first, and then let's see how it happens.
Earlier this morning, residents could still be seen checking in for their flights to locations including Okinawa, Sapporo, and Fukuoka. Several travelers to Japanese destinations outside of the 4 designated airports said they remain uncertain about the status of their return flights to the city. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
With the partial reopening of the mainland border, many turned up in mainland travel permit replacement centres to renew their documents, but the service requires prior bookings online. Elderly applicants find that procedure challenging. With the latest COVID policy relaxations on the mainland and in Hong Kong, cross-border travels is no longer a dream too far. Many are hoping to renew their outdated mainland travel permit, but all holders must make prior online bookings to do so. So far, the China Travel Service website shows that all 5 replacement centres are fully booked for the coming week. In this travel permit replacement centre in Kowloon Bay, there were long queues for those seeking help and those waiting to take a photo. Applicants are expected to get their renewed permit after 2 weeks. The centers, however, will speed up dealing with the application process of certain cases. That includes for medical and personal reasons, provided that the applicants have the valid proof. As online bookings are required, there were no walk-in tickets. This man came all the way to Kowloon Bay only to find walk-in services not available, lamenting he has no idea how to make bookings online. This woman said the renewal procedure only took about 15 minutes and is happy she can finally visit her family. But she feels bad for the seniors, especially those who don't have relatives around them to help them with online bookings. According to China Travel Service, applicants aged 70 or above who have problems using the online system can seek help at the centers. But this morning, little assistance was given to the elderly. Lawmaker Yu Pak-leung, who's also vice chairman of the China Travel Service, have yet to respond to our inquiries. According to the U.S. officials, Washington may impose new COVID-19 measures on travelers to the United States from China. This over concerns about what the U.S. called the lack of transparent data coming from Beijing. The move comes after Japan, India and Malaysia announced stepped-up rules on travelers from China in the last 24 hours, citing a rise in infections in the country. Japan has said it would require a negative COVID-19 test upon arrival for travelers from China. The Philippines is also planning to require all tourists from China to get tested before entry. Beijing's foreign ministry said COVID measures introduced by different countries should be based on science and should not stop people from traveling normally. In a two-day meeting with top officials of the Communist Party of China, President Xi Jinping urged party members to fully implement the spirit of the 20th CPC National Congress. Xi also stressed the importance of maintaining the party's centralized leadership. The Democratic Live meeting, which lasted from Monday to Tuesday, is a traditional event held by party members to self-reflect. President Xi emphasized that the centralization of party leadership is one of the principles of Marxist thought. Xi also noted the need to step up anti-corruption efforts. Still ahead on tonight's news. President Vladimir Putin bans Russia from selling oil to many Western countries. U.S. air traffic hit by ongoing snowy weather. And research finds intake of sodium and fiber for pregnant women at unhealthy levels. Welcome back. Russia has retaliated against a price cap on its oil imposed by Western countries. President Vladimir Putin has banned Moscow from selling oil to countries that abide by the price cap that was imposed on December 5th. Tracy Farnes has more.
President Putin delivered Russia's long-awaited response to a Western price cap on the country's oil. He signed a decree that bans the supply of crude oil and oil products from February 1st for 5 months to nations that impose the cap. The decree was published on a government portal and the Kremlin website. The group of 7 industrialized nations, the European Union and Australia, agreed earlier this month to a $60 per barrel price cap on Russian seaborne crude oil effective December 5th as a result of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. The price cap, unseen even during the Cold War between the West and the Soviet Union, is aimed at crippling Moscow's military efforts in Ukraine. Russia's Finance Minister Anton Siluanov said that the country's budget deficit could be wider than the planned 2% of GDP in 2023, with the oil price cap squeezing export income, an extra fiscal hurdle for Moscow as it spends heavily on its military campaign in Ukraine. Meanwhile, in eastern and southern Ukraine, Russian forces again shelled and bombed towns and cities. The heaviest fighting was around Bakhmut, which Russia has been trying for months to storm at huge costs in lives. The town, home to 70,000 people before the war, is now in ruins. Fires burn in residential buildings and windows are blown out. This 85-year-old resident said, "Our house is destroyed. There was a shop in our building. Now it's not there. I'm the only one remaining from the whole building." Residents remaining in the city say they have no electricity, water or gas. Britain said that Russia continues to initiate frequent small-scale assaults in these areas, although little territory has changed hands. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Tens of thousands of passengers across the United States were left stranded on Tuesday after Southwest Airlines cancelled most of its flights for a second day. Nazvi Karim reports.
Stranded travelers in the United States were not only looking for flights, they were also searching for their luggage. Chaos reigned across the U.S. after Southwest Airlines cancelled up to 2,600 flights, blaming the bad weather. This as other airlines had most of their fleet in the air, though they were fully booked to accommodate desperate Southwest passengers. Stranded passengers also means tons of luggage, and at John Wayne Airport in Orange County, they waded through rows of bags to find their own, not always successfully.
I lost my bags, as you can see. Everyone got their flights canceled, they lost their bags, luggage. Everyone's trying to find a way home.
Similar scenes played out in airports across the country. In Portland, thousands queued up for hours to rebook flights, with some facing delays of several days.
When there's a weather-related event like this, there's like a day delay. When it's the holidays, there's often a day delay. And when there's entire airport shut down, there's a day delay. So you compound all of those factors and you get a 4-day delay.
Southwest, which accounted for around 80% of all cancellations, was criticized for using an inefficient system for deploying flight crews during bad weather. Secretary for Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, said the department would look into Southwest's operations and make sure affected passengers were compensated financially. Meanwhile, in Buffalo, authorities made a plea for residents to stay off the roads after 28 people died in one of the worst snowstorms in New York State history. Some victims were found dead in their cars as rescuers tried to clear up the snow that has piled up to more than 23 centimeters in some areas.
It is ugly right now on many of the streets. Please, please, you heard the mayor beg, I'm begging, stay home.
Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
U.S. Representative-elect George Santos, a New York Republican, has acknowledged lying about his education and employment history while running for Congress. He claimed to have worked at Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, but he actually did not. NBC has the story.
Facing allegations he lied on his resume, New York Congressman-elect George Santos has this to say.
If I disappointed anyone by resume embellishment, I'm sorry.
Adding,
a lot of people overstate in their resumes or twist a little bit or ingratiate themselves.
Among the claims embellished his graduation from Baruch College. Santos tells the New York Post, "I didn't graduate from any institution of higher learning." The Republican is under fire after the New York Times revealed his biography couldn't be entirely corroborated, including a claim on his website that he used to be an associate asset manager at Citigroup. The 34-year-old now saying he never worked directly for Citigroup. And there are questions about his heritage. Here's Santos at the Republican Jewish Coalition last November, speaking about Congressman Lee Zeldin.
Lee has served as an inspiration, as a friend, and as a leader for the Jewish folks in Congress and for all of us in this room, by at one point being just 2 members. So now we're going to be 3.
Santos tells the Post, "I never claimed to be Jewish. I am Catholic." He has not responded to NBC News' request for comment. Today, his constituents in Long Island had mixed opinions.
What do you think should happen with George Santos? I'm very concerned about it. I think I would like to see the election done over.
For this voter, the important thing is policy.
I think he embellished his resume.
Do you think that disqualifies him from being a congressman?
No.
Santos insists he's still committed to serve. Once sworn in, it would take an act of a Republican-controlled House to remove him. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Great Neck, New York.
Back locally, a survey conducted by Chinese University's Faculty of Medicine found around half of pregnant women in the city had excessive sodium intake early in their term. Researchers said unhealthy diets could increase the risk of pregnancy problems and chronic diseases. Among the 156 pregnant women the university interviewed, most of them had unhealthy dietary patterns, including excessive salt intake and insufficient fiber and micronutrients. Head of Endocrinology and Diabetes Professor Ronald Ma said sodium can be found in many processed food. A prolonged excess can create long-term negative effects on the health of both mothers and fetuses. The Food and Environmental Hygiene Department has launched a citywide anti-rodent operation today. It will strengthen rodent control in places such as wet markets. Secretary for Environment and Ecology Zechin Wan visited Tai Shing Street Market in Wong Tai Sin this morning. Since October, the market has been using alcohol traps and glue traps to capture rats. So far, 700 rats have been caught, and the average number of rats caught each week has begun to fall, indicating that the method is effective. And that's the news. Thanks for joining us.